I'm rising to speak to Amendment 220, which I've added my name to, in relation to the guidance for schools on gender questioning children, which is still long overdue and which I think we have to ensure happens as quickly as possible. And I'm grateful to the noble lady Baroness Barron for having pursued this and tabling these amendments. I do think that this is incredibly important and necessary, both for clarifying issues for parents, for teachers in particular, in understanding and knowing exactly how they might deal with the difficult questions around gender questioning children, and of course for children themselves. I think obviously it relates to some of the controversy and in fact the failure to issue the EHRC code in relation to the guidance coming from the Supreme Court judgment, but it's obviously stands within its own terms. And I do think that when I talk to teachers, when I talk to parents, there is still quite a lot of confusion about the demands of the Equality Act 2010's gender reassignment protected characteristic and how one deals with that and duties in relation to that, and then how that might clash with, for example, safeguarding or free speech. And I do think it leaves teachers exposed and unclear. I just wanted to refer as well to what it feels like for parents who across the UK have been shocked to discover that their children have been taught or told in classrooms and have sounded the alarm on some teachers covering highly sexualised and age-inappropriate content with young pupils, and in some schools even affirming children in their gender identities, i.e. social transitioning, without the consent or knowledge of their parents. And it's understandable that that has caused alarm. I think for children, 3 to 4-year-olds just starting to learn how to tell fact from fiction, the difference between make-believe games with friends pretending to be princesses, and playing families, whatever, and telling children at this stage that a person can literally change from one sex to another can be hugely confusing. And I understand that this is not the government's intention, and the government do want to clarify it, but that's why I think that the guidance should be urgently introduced and explained to schools, and the government should make clear what is and is not permissible. I think it too often is left up to grassroots activists otherwise. There was recently an article that hit the media about a group of women who, one retired midwife, another retired solicitor, another mum of 2, who are from a group called Protect and Teach, who say that many schools do not have the appropriate safeguards in place, and they're especially worried about outside organisations being invited in to effectively teach children, some as young as primary school, about inclusiveness, which might sound harmless enough until you look at the kind of teaching materials used by these third-party organisations, which research shows have very flawed policies in muddling up sex in the Equality Act 2010 with sexual identity and gender. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we have concerns. Some of the work they did, for example, showed that 75% of Church of England schools had problematic policies in relation to, for example, anti-bullying policies, which are not directly related, but practically all of the material used in those anti-bullying policies focused on transgender identity, not bullying in any other way. And the message of this was that affirmation was the way forward, that young people needed to be kept safe from polarised debates, which would indicate a one-size-fits-all. So I'm quite straightforwardly saying we need clear guidance. The government must issue that clear guidance. Schools need help with this. It's not easy, nobody's saying it is, but what we can't do is just leave it open. I just wanted to make one final point on the noble Lord Harris of Pentragar's Amendment 206. I wanted to commend him for doggedly and persistently pushing this amendment, which I've heard for a number of times. I wanted to commend his celebration of British values, because I think that's important, and I've said that before. I don't agree with the content of all of the British values listed. I think the respect for the environment paragraph is particularly contentious, weak. I've written down here twaddle, but that's probably not a parliamentary word, but anyway, I've written it down. I did, however, want to just take this moment to note that in the section on democracy, it includes that government should be accountable to Parliament. And I did think that that was something we could learn a lesson from, because it's not always the case that government is accountable to Parliament. Far too many Henry VIII clauses, in my view. It also notes that democracy, as a value, should have regular elections, which would suggest you shouldn't cancel them, which we're witnessing at the moment. It talks about the importance of the rule of law, and it immediately reminded me of what's happening to jury trials. And then it finally says that freedom includes freedom of thought and conscience, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly and association. As somebody going through the crime and policing bill, I did think that maybe it was worth sending Lord Harris of Pentregar British Values amendment through to the people pushing that bill, because I can assure you that freedom of thought, expression and assembly and association are not safe under that bill.